This is the Arts Council's clinic for the Festival Investment Scheme. The application process opens on the 26th of September and the deadline for the applications is the 26th of October at 5:30 p.m. Dublin time. The clinic is designated to guide you through the application process so that you're clear about what is required when making your application. The clinic is broken down into 5 sections and we will cover these in turn. Important changes and information about the Festival Investment Scheme, the guidelines, the application form, how your application is assessed, and helpful tips. If you've applied to the Arts Council before, or you're a new applicant, this section will cover important information you need to know and changes that have been made to the scheme. If you're an organisation considering an application and your festival activity is in 2018, there is only one deadline, which is October the 26th at 5:30 p.m. You may make only one application to the Festival Investment Scheme in any 1 year. We've introduced a new eligibility criteria, changes to our assessment and application scoring process, and changes to what supporting material is now required with your application. These will be covered in a later section of this clinic, but please refer to the guidelines as these will be different if you've applied before. The Festival Investment Scheme has 3 bands under which you can apply. Band A for smaller festivals and new festival ideas, Band B for small to mid-scale festivals seeking to build capacity, and Band C for festivals strategically driven with a commitment to artistic leadership. The funding support available under each band is Band A up to €5,000, Band B between €5,001 and €20,000, and Band C between €20,001 and €35,000. You should select the application form and the guidelines for the band that you wish to apply for. There is an application form and set of guidelines for each band, and please note that the application forms and the guidelines are different for each band within the scheme. The guidelines provided are to assist you in your application process and provide information about the Festival Investment Scheme and how it works. The guidelines are broken into 4 sections which will be covered in more detail. These are eligibility. This covers what you may and may not apply for, which types of organisation can apply for the scheme, and the information we require with your application. Objectives and priorities of the scheme is another area, making your application, guidance notes, and processing and assessment of applications. Eligibility outlines the conditions applicants must satisfy in order to be considered for funding. Please read the guidelines carefully as there are specific eligibility criteria for each band. The clinic covers the following eligibility areas. The Festival Investment Scheme is open to organisations promoting festivals with a clear artistic purpose and which will take place in the calendar year of 2018. The scheme is also open to organisations running a series of linked events, for example a concert series, throughout the months of January to December in 2018. An organisation may make only one application under the Festival Investment Scheme. So for example, an applicant to Band A may not apply to Bands B or C, and an applicant to Band C, as another example, may not apply to Bands A or B. Applicants must also ensure that the primary festival activity takes place in the Republic of Ireland and that mandatory supporting information that's required as part of your application is provided. We cannot consider your application for assessment without these documents. Organisations that are not eligible to apply under the scheme include organisations whose proposed activity would be better suited to another Arts Council funding scheme, commercial organisations that share out profits to members, organisations based abroad, organisations currently in receipt of funding under any Arts Council recurring grant programmes. These include strategic funding, partnership funding, and venues funding. You should also refer to the guidelines for what you may or may not apply for as part of your application. In this section, you will find the objectives and priorities of the Festival Investment Scheme. It's broken down into 3 areas: the priorities of the scheme itself, the festival priorities, and art form priorities. We'll give primary consideration to proposals that meet these areas best. Demonstrating a commitment and capacity to maximise public engagement through participation and audience attendance. Express an overarching artistic vision that resonates with the nature of the proposed activities and demonstrates artistic excellence. Demonstrates sound and effective festival management, track record of excellence, organisation and delivery to a high standard. Shows evidence of a commitment to the Arts Council's festival objectives, and shows evidence of a commitment to the Arts Council's art form objectives. The art form and festival objectives can be found in your guideline notes. The application guidance notes provide more detail on the sections of the application form that requires careful consideration. These guidance notes are particular to each band, so please ensure that you download the guidelines for the band that match your application. The guidance notes will take you through each section of the application form, providing clarification on terminology and clarification on what is required in each section. The guidelines also have a section on how your application is processed and assessed so that you understand the next steps after you have submitted your application. This is covered in more detail later in the clinic. This section covers the application form. We recommend that you have the appropriate guidelines to hand when filling out the application. Please ensure that you leave plenty of time to fill out the form, as we ask you for more information than before. Please note that if you're applying under Band C only, that the development plan is part of your application form, and this must be completed and uploaded with your application. We cannot consider your application without it. To start the application process, you must ensure that you are registered with online services, and more information on this can be found on the Arts Council website, www.artscouncil.ie. The application form is divided clearly into 5 sections: your organisation, your proposal, stakeholders and partnerships, financial management, and project management. In the first section, your organisation, we will ask you for information about your festival track record to date, your mission statement, which is what your organisation does, and who's involved in your project. It's important to give as much information as possible on those helping to put your festival project together. This might include artists or those organising the festival. You might also indicate if their involvement is confirmed or pending. If you're applying under Band B and C, we will also ask you in this section about your artistic policy. Your proposal is an opportunity to make your case for support and tell us more information about what you're planning. We will ask you to give us the dates and location of your activity, a summary of what you're proposing, and also your festival plans in more detail. It's important in this section to be clear and concise. This section is an aid to us finding out more about the vision and detail of your project. We'll also ask you to tell us about how your proposal meets both the festival objectives and art form objectives, as outlined in your guidelines. If you're applying under Band C, you should expect to find a question in this section which relates to your commitment towards artistic leadership. There's more detail in the guidelines about how this is interpreted for the scheme. In this section, you will find questions which relate to audience information data, those that participate in your activity, and your commitment to developing audiences. We will ask you to provide us with information on how you grow your audiences, and then ask you to give us statistics. We'll ask you to tell us how many people attended and participated in your previous festival, and how many you estimate for your festival in 2018. If you're a new festival, then you should put new into the appropriate sections. There are helpful tools on the Arts Council website for calculating and estimating audience figures, and these are a good guide when completing this section. If you're applying under bands B and C, you should also expect to answer questions on demonstrating partnerships. And if you're a band C applicant, you will also be expected to tell us about how your festival project fits with your local authority plans. The financial management section provides us with information on the costs of your proposal and how much support you are requesting from the Arts Council. In this section, we will ask you to identify your expenditure and then your income. The amount that you request from the Arts Council is your total expenditure minus your total income. We will also ask you to tell us how you will spend the amount requested in funding. In this section, we would expect to see a list of items that total the amount of funding you are seeking. Please note that if you're applying under Band C, we will ask you for more information on your plans to raise income from other sources. Also, for Band C applicants, you may not ask for more than 10% of your grant request for marketing support. In order to give us a fuller picture as possible, we will also ask you in this section about benefit in kind and the value of that benefit, how you manage your budgets, and how you calculate your fees for artists that work on your project. The final section of the application covers project management. We will ask you to outline how your festival is managed and organised, and also to provide us with key milestone dates which aid us to see how you plan your festival. Please read this section carefully, as we will ask for different information depending on the band that you apply under. We will also ask you for information on how you evaluate your festival. This is the method by which you learn more about your festival project. This may be through online surveys, audience questionnaires, for example. In this section, you would outline what methods you use. If you're applying under bands B and C, you should expect to find questions about risk management. We will ask you to identify the risks to your festival project and what plans are in place to reduce or avoid these from taking place. Once your application is complete, you must ensure that you have provided us with your mandatory supporting information. These are important documents that we require to properly assess your application. Without these, your application is ineligible. In this section, you must tick the boxes for the documents you will upload with your application through the online system. You may provide us with other information if you wish, and please refer to the guidelines for acceptable file types and sizes. If you're applying under Band A, you must provide a brochure of your previous festival, letters of support from partners, artists, organisations that you will be working with. And if you're a new festival, then please provide us with CVs of the organisers planning and producing the festival instead. If you're applying under Band B, you must provide a brochure of your previous festival, letters of support, and a detailed breakdown of your income and expenditure. If you're applying under Band C only, you must provide a brochure of your previous festival, letters of support, and a detailed breakdown of your income and expenditure, along with the development plan. The development plan is for Band C applicants only, and in this section we will cover what is required when filling out the document. Please ensure that you refer to the Band C guidelines, which provide you with more details. The Festival Development Plan is an essential document which underpins your application. It asks you to provide information in a structured way that sets out a plan of action for your organisation. This plan should support the proposal you are making in your application form. The development plan should be focused on your organisation priorities and policies and your application on your festival project. The development plan will cover the following sections: mission statement of your organisation, aims, objectives and outcomes, policies such as artistic, public engagement, marketing and fundraising, financial planning, stakeholder relationships such as partnerships and governance, and finally, risk management. The development plan is part of the application, and without it, your application will not be eligible for assessment. We have included a development plan specifically for this band to allow us to assess your application and to find out how your organisation supports and underpins your festival proposal. It's also an organisational development tool for festivals. Details on how your application is processed and assessed can be found in the guidelines for each band. After completing the application form, you're required to upload it along with the required mandatory supporting documentation through the online system. When your application is submitted, it will be acknowledged by us so that you have confirmation that we have received it. The application will then be checked against our eligibility criteria. All eligible applications will then progress to assessment stage. At assessment stage, the advisors and/or staff make a written assessment which is then scored by the executive. The executive then recommend applications as shortlisted based on their score. The executive reviews all applications and recommendations and makes decisions. Decisions are then communicated in writing to applicants and decisions are noted by council. Applications are assessed in a competitive context and with consideration of the application form and the supporting materials submitted. All applications assessed against the following criteria, which are priorities of the scheme: public engagement, artistic merit, feasibility, festival priorities, and art form priorities. Details on each of these assessment areas are contained in the guidelines for the scheme. In scoring applications, we have adopted a new scoring mechanism which provides applicants with more clarity around the decision-making process, and more details on the scoring system can be found in the guidelines. The scoring applied to the Festival Investment Scheme is weighted against specific criteria, and details of this can also be found in the guidelines. In order for an application to be shortlisted and proceed for funding consideration, it must score a minimum of 60%. Here's an example of a score sheet for a festival application. The example outlines how the festival has been scored against each of the criteria when the weighting is applied. In this example, the festival has scored enough to be considered for funding. Finally, here are some helpful tips to assist you with making an application. Each set of the guidelines in the application form has the letter of the band that it relates to. Please ensure that your application form and guideline band letter matches. Band A guidelines for Band A applicants, as an example. Please read the guidelines thoroughly. Don't assume that we know everything about your festival project. Provide us with as much information that gives us a clear picture of what you want to achieve, and please be clear and concise in your language. Leave plenty of time for your application, as the new application process asks for more detail, particularly Band C applicants. Be realistic about the funding band that you select. The forms are designed to match the different stages of festival development, and you should expect the process to be more challenging the more you advance from Band A to C. Double check that your mandatory support documentation has been uploaded, and get someone to read over your application before submission. Check the eligibility criteria thoroughly, as these are particular to each band. And if anything is unclear, you may ask your relevant assessment team for clarification or contact the festivals team at the Arts Council. If you're experiencing technical difficulties, please contact online services at artscouncil.ie. If you're thinking of applying to the scheme, the application form can be downloaded using the Arts Council's online services, and the guidelines can be downloaded from the Arts Council's website on the available funding page. If you're thinking of making an application to the scheme for a festival taking place in 2019, you should be aware that the Arts Council plans to reintroduce biannual funding rounds for this scheme. If your festival is intended to take place between January to June of 2019, you should expect to apply in February of 2018. If your festival is intended to take place between July and December of 2019, you should expect to apply in September of 2018. Frequently asked questions about the Festival Investment Scheme from the live clinics will be available on the Arts Council's website on the Festivals page at www.artscouncil.ie. Thank you for listening.